Welcome to another edition of Rosen Sports Monday. Mark Rosen here, along with the founder of Talk North Sports, Star Tribune columnist extraordinaire, Jim Souhan, and Wintersville, USA, right here in the Twin Cities, Jimmy.
I mean, I'm so sick of winning.
Will it ever end? It would nice be to end with a parade or two, but we'll get to that in a little bit. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Lexus of Wayzata, Lexus of Maplewood, Charlie Swanson, the one and only Charlie. Thanks so much for your support, GM, and Broadway Dental. My friend Dr. Ben Stein. If you need some dental work, if you need some help with your sleep apnea, as I've talked about over and over again, he is the man to see. So we'll hear from them a little bit later. So let's start with the headline. The Timberwolves have dispatched both the Lakers and Golden State, and here we are facing the 68-win Oklahoma City Thunder, kind of the way it should be. I mean, it's not supposed to get easier. It's supposed to get harder. On paper, great matchup. Superstars, Ant versus SGA. I mean, you get the whole thing. Chet Holmgren returning home. How do you view this series? And even though the Wolves are the underdogs by Vegas standards,
I will say that on Sunday morning, I thought the Wolves were going to advance to the NBA Finals. And on Sunday night, I'm still willing to pick them in a tough 7 games, but I'm not as confident. Oklahoma City, I thought Oklahoma City played pretty poorly for much of that series. We know how great Jokic is. That's a team that fired their head coach, that has no bench, that has injury problems, that has been pretty erratic this year. And I thought Oklahoma City just didn't play very well against them in some big games. And then all of a sudden Sunday, they have to win. Now, part of it was Aaron Gordon's injury, but I also thought you saw Oklahoma City play in the postseason the way they played in the regular season. They got out and ran. They got the ball to everybody. SGA was incredibly efficient. They threw some great looks defensively at Jokic that he hadn't seen before. I thought that was what Oklahoma City's supposed to be, and we saw it yesterday. So I'm not nearly as confident in my Wolves pick today as I was a day ago.
But for the as they say, the 30,000-foot view of this series beyond the specific matchups, which we can talk about, is did the Wolves learn enough last year after beating Denver in that grueling 7-game series and then getting smoked by Dallas, and then said that we were exhausted, we couldn't do it all, to kind of advance their thinking about going into a championship series versus an Oklahoma City team that really hasn't had to handle the big stage. I mean, and especially at crunch time. We've seen this before with this team. We saw it during the playoffs sometimes where they just get a little happy feet, as they say, at the end of the series. Maybe the Wolves are going to count on that experience to put them over the top.
I think both teams are in pretty good position. Oklahoma City, I think that was a breakthrough win, beating Denver in Game 7, because their failure would have been as big a story as there is in the NBA if they had lost. I think the Wolves are in a much better position than they were a year ago. This group had never been that deep into the playoffs before. They win with a huge comeback in Game 7 in Denver, and then they're flying back home and they are celebrating. And all of a sudden, Game 1 comes, and Doncic and Kyrie with that front line was something they had not seen before. It was something they couldn't handle. I don't think they were physically tired as much as they were. And Ant said this. And I've talked to some Timberwolves people about it too. Ant's in great physical shape. He was not physically tired. He was mentally spent. They thought that winning Game 7 in Denver was the mountaintop, and then they get into the finals, and Dallas surprised the heck out of them and outplayed them by a wide margin. I think the Wolves are much better for that. It's not the same circumstances. They didn't have to extend themselves. They've been rested. They know how to prepare for a series. Finch, when he's given extra time, has done extremely well. I mean, they've won 4 of the last 5 playoff series, and every time Finch has had time to prepare, they've won. So I think they're in great shape. I think how close Oklahoma City plays to their ceiling is probably going to define the series.
We can all dream about a possible Wolves-Knicks NBA Finals with Julius Randle and DiVincenzo against Karl Anthony Towns.
And Tibbs.
And Tibbs coming back. But let's start with at least the individual I just mentioned first and foremost. One guy that did not have a year ago in particular is Julius Randle. If you look at his body of work and the bully ball he plays, but his ability, he had Steph Curry shaking his head, literally, after some of the moves he made. And he seems to be that guy right now. That it's not, the moment's not too big for him.
He was their best player against Golden State. He was fantastic. And I think their number is now, I think they're 25-6 since he came back from an injury.
Mm-hmm.
And they won, I believe they won the 5 games he played with them before he got hurt. So they're really 30-6, and they're winning 83% of the games Julius Randle plays since mid-January.
Yeah, and this is what I like about this series too, Jim. Again, we're talking with Jim Souhan, is the fact that going into this series, both teams are healthy. I mean, Aaron Gordon was talking about that yesterday, with the hamstring injuries and what we've seen with Steph being out. That everyone wants to see the teams at their best, and this is why I'm not saying celebrating the fact that Oklahoma City won. I mean, obviously it was an easier path had Denver won, but I want to see the Wolves tested against the best, and they're going to get a healthy Oklahoma City team. The Wolves, after going through some really tough parts of their season with Randall out and DiVincenzo out and Gobert out, they're fully healthy. In fact, I don't think Randall and Gobert played in 3 of the 4 games against OKC.
They had bad timing, and they lost all 4 games to OKC. But I just don't think the regular season.
Wait a minute, who did?
Didn't Oklahoma City win all 4 games against the Wolves?
No, I think they were 2-2.
Oh, I was thinking. Never mind. The Wolves won all 4 against Denver. They split with OKC. You're right.
Yep.
I was confused.
That's okay.
So it's gonna be. I mean, it's such a great matchup. As you said, 2 healthy teams, 2 deep teams, 2 young superstars trying to prove that they might be as good as anybody, 2 coaches that are kind of understated but are excellent at what they do, 2 genius general managers, and a lot of likable players too.
One of the things that struck me when I was watching the last game against Golden State, when I think everyone knew watching it, even though Golden State made a run late, that they could not match up with the Wolves. But the Wolves went through a period of time. They were kicking the ball around, like fumbling on their end zone, basically. And Ant had a couple of bad turnovers. And I'm thinking, well, you cannot do that against OKC. They will kill you in the open court and transition baskets. And this is something I think that might be the number one concern going into the game for Chris Finch, is that, boys, we got to keep those turnovers down, because this is not a team you can get away with that.
The Wolves have dramatically improved their transition defense as the season's gone on. In general, they've improved their turnover ratio, but and that was a weird game 5. And we talked to the players a lot about that.
It was
21 turnovers, which is horrid, and yet they assisted on like 80% of the baskets, and the ball movement was brilliant. So when they didn't do something stupid with the basketball, the offense functioned the way it's supposed to function. But as you said, they cannot turn the ball over against this team. This team turns turnovers into points almost immediately and destroys, and the Wolves have a great half-court defense. If you let OKC score in transition, that takes away that strength. So I think Wolves turnovers is one of the biggest stats of this series.
I don't know who's going to start defensively on SGA. They might be moving it around a little bit, whether it's Jaden or someone else. But when I rub my temples, as they say, and I go, oh my goodness, I can see this individual, whether it's Jaden or whomever, picking up 3 fouls in the first half, because he is so good at using his body to convince the officials that the opponent caused that physical confrontation, and I'm at the free throw line. And I think the bench is going to be hugely important, but how they defend and how they maintain their composure against SGA, because he's not a guy that is going to kill you in other ways, but he is so good at drawing fouls.
He's really good at breaking down your defense, and he's kind of a skinny Julius Randle.
Yeah,
in a way. He gets in the middle of your defense. He breaks down your defense. He can hit the shot. He can create for other people. He can draw the foul. And he's really good at it. And I usually don't talk about officiating because it's a cop-out. It's the easy way out. In this case, you have SGA, who's an expert at getting foul calls, and you have Ant, who is even more dynamic athletically and who doesn't get the foul calls. How those two are officiated could be decisive. Because SGA knows how to turn something that doesn't look like a foul into a foul call, and partly because he's so strong, he has the flaw that he can take contact, have it not look like a foul, even if it is a foul. So how the officials judge this in real time is going to be pretty fascinating.
That is a great point. It's going to be fun also to watch our guy. He's one of us, Chet Holmgren, coming back to Minnesota next Saturday with the first home game for Minnesota. We both watched him in Minnehaha Academy. Skinny kid. We knew he had the potential to be a good pro someday. He's obviously surrounded by a lot of talent, but he's athletically gifted. How do you see him fitting in? And I saw him missed a couple of free throws early in the playoffs where like he did not want to be on that free throw line. That's going to be a tough, mentally grinding sort of situation for Chet Holmgren to come home here.
It will be. I'm guessing he can handle it.
Yeah, I probably can.
And I do think it's another fascinating matchup is the front courts. Okay, you have Rudy, the traditional rim protector, who's as good at that as anybody in the league. Then you have Naz, who's kind of a hybrid 4-5 who runs the court and shoots threes, can defend the rim. And on the other side, you have Hartenstein, who's a good, solid inside player. I don't know if Rudy can just shut him down because he has that little push shot, but that'll be interesting to see. And then you have Holmgren, who's kind of a hybrid 4-5 who runs the court and can dunk on you, can shoot the three. So I have no idea how they're going to match up, but I'm going to be watching for that.
You will see Rudy and Hartenstein. Neither one will take a shot outside of 5 feet.
Right. Nor should either. either.
Yeah, Hartenstein, I think you have to call him.
Okay, thank you.
That's that little push shot of his,
yes.
And he's a very tough guy mentally and understands the game defensively and everything else. But speaking of defense, I think the X factor for OKC is Alex Caruso.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is a pest. And we saw him defend Joker. I mean, he was fronting Joker, and he's like 10 inches shorter than him. But he's going to get in your jock, as they say, and be there and be a pest.
I thought that was brilliant by Daniel to bother Jokic. Everybody plays a big guy behind Jokic, and he destroys them all. And to put Caruso in front of him where he wasn't going to be able to dribble, where he was going to make the entry tough pass, it slowed the Nuggets way down. Because the Nuggets are looking at it, we got to get the ball to Jokic. He's got a 6'2" guy on him, okay? That slowed down their offense so much because that's all they started doing was feeding into Jokic, and then they get doubled, and they just they ran down the clock on him. So I thought it was brilliant. Caruso, I do think he's one of – let's be honest, both teams have excellent depth. We also don't know how some of the depth players are going to play on this stage. DiVincenzo had a horrible Golden State series and then played well in Game 5. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, a key player for this franchise, has not played well this postseason. At least hasn't shot it well. And then you have, you have people like Hartenstein. You have, you don't know how he's going to play. And then Caruso, I had somebody telling me 2 days ago, somebody in the NBA is telling me, yeah, Caruso's one of those players you like to have him in the regular season, but he's not really a postseason player. And then he came out and had a great Game 7. So we know nothing.
I think Chris Finch loves DiVincenzo, if nothing else, even if his shot's not falling, and that needs to fall because we know he's an excellent 3-point shooter. But his defense, he's like Caruso. I mean, he does bother the hell out of his opponents, and he's a pest. He's strong. He's fearless, and he can do all those things. But do you think? I'm wondering too if Finch will expand that bench at all because he's been going with 8. I mean, we know who his role players are. We know that when the first 2 subs coming off the bench will be Naz Reid and DiVincenzo, and then Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and that's it. No Jaden Clark, no Terrence Shannon. Even though they might have some spot duty if the opportunity presented itself, because those guys have the talent, especially Jaden Clark, maybe lock somebody up defensively. But I don't. Do you see him expanding his bench at all?
I don't see him playing those guys a lot of minutes. I still think they're in the emergency category: foul trouble, fatigue. I mean, from the outside, I love the idea of using Jalen Clark as somebody who can just go out and bother a star. Because he's physical. He can play without fouling. He moves his feet extremely well. He's quick. He can also hit a shot. It would be very tempting for me to use him that way. But I think what we're seeing from Finch is he trusts 8 players. And you're playing in the postseason where the timeouts are longer. There's more rest to be had in the middle of the game. I just don't think he's going to play somebody he doesn't trust more than a couple minutes here or there.
How big a moment is this for Chris Finch? You've been around him a lot as well and talked with him, and we all know what a personable coach he is and person he is, and gone through much like the late Flip Saunders, coached at almost every level before he got his opportunity here. This is a big moment for him.
It is a big moment for him. I see more upside than downside right now. There are times where you say, okay, this might be the last chance this guy ever gets. This might be he might have to win this or he's going to get fired. Finch ain't getting fired. And this team could lose this series and be right back in the Western Conference Finals next year. So I don't see it as a do or die, have to have it kind of thing. I just think if he wins, a lot of people start giving him a massive amount of credit. If he loses, he gets lost in the wash with everybody else who loses
Right.
on the way to the finals.
The one guy I kept kind of like tweeting about in the last game I was really impressed with, and it's sometimes we take him for granted, is Mike Conley. Been through it a lot, not going to get rattled by much of anything, but certainly can not only hit that three-point shot once in a while, but is just kind of the field general out there. He has a calming presence that this team needs when everyone else gets a little excited, even Ant at times.
The great thing about Conley is he's kind of the same with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
He's great with his teammates. He's great with his coaches. He's great with the front office. He's great with the PR people. He's great with the writers. He is one of the classiest, savviest athletes I've ever encountered. And, as you know, we've been doing this a while now. He's as smart and as cool and as good a person as I've covered. And you hear a bunch, you don't hear people on other NBA teams saying, we want to win it for our old point guard who, scores 6 points a game. You're hearing that from the Wolves this week. The Wolves are like, we want to win for Mike.
Both of us have been around long enough to know when you watch the coverage and you see the promotion, let's say, as I was watching yesterday, winner Minnesota taking on the winner, as it turns out, Oklahoma City. And I found myself having to take a step back going, are you kidding me? Wait, this is the same franchise that we watched year after year after year. And we can name all the players we're talking about. That you knew didn't have a chance in hell in winning, and coaching staffs and everything else. That this looks like it's a sustainable thing for a while, as much as it can be with the competitiveness, especially in the Western Conference.
I was talking to a Timberwolves staffer the other day before a practice, and they were saying, God, and this was not meant for print. It's like, we're so lucky. We built this great organization, and there are no jerks. The players aren't jerks. The front office, there are no jerks in the front office. There are no jerks on the coaching staff. Everybody's likable. Everybody gets along. Everybody's driven. And Finch has a lot to do with all that. I also think Conley is not only really good at his job, he's used the line with me before, actually on the John Krasinski show when we did it live at Head Flyer, and Tim was our guest a couple of years ago. He said, who wants to go to work with jerks?
Yeah.
It does wear on you. And we see other franchises not achieving to their talent level because this guy didn't like that guy. This guy didn't want to pass the ball to that guy. This guy's just playing for his next contract. Listen, they have all the same potential problems in the locker room. Everybody cares about their careers, their paychecks, their playing time, who gets to coach. They care about all that stuff. But I think the leadership of Conley and Finch just dissipates all that stuff.
Right. The one player we haven't discussed is the guy. I mean, it's Ant. I mean, it's his moment. I was just reading a business article in the Sports Business magazine about his group of people in Atlanta that are putting together this. I mean, they have been working on it for years. I mean, he's putting together this empire a la LeBron and some of the other great players, Steph, he's venturing out into a lot of things. But first and foremost, the kid wants to win. I mean, he has to win. He has to elevate his play in order for a lot of these other things to succeed. I'm not saying that's his motivation. He's a gym rat. He knows he wants to be the guy. This is going to be. I'm anxious to see how he's going to pit against the SGA because the contrast is going to be there no matter how you slice it.
Yes, and it's already been a very interesting postseason for him. He's had big games. He's had terrible games. He's had games where he hit the three. He's had games where he went over from the three. He's had games where he looked a little lost, and there have been games where he's taken over. What I like about Game 5 against Golden State, he had too many turnovers. That was the flaw. What I liked about it was he didn't look like he was forcing anything. He was making the play that was there to be made. And I just think as much as we talk about shooting and offensive dominance, all those other things, on this team, this roster, these circumstances, they need him to make the right play more than they need him to force something.
And the Timberwolves have been a terrific road team. I don't think they're intimidated about going into OKC.
Seeding, what we've learned this postseason, seeding and home court advantage mean absolutely nothing.
Correct. Well, it should be a lot of fun. I mean, probably all looking at a 7-game series if it all works out that way. Let's take a break and keep talking about all the winning going on in this town. Mark Rosen along with Jim Souhan. Let's take a break to hear from our wonderful sponsors. Hey, Rosie here for Broadway Dental and my good friend, Dr. Ben Stein. I'm a patient of Dr. Stein's at both his sleep apnea clinic and dental clinic. He has a newly renovated and conveniently located dental office in Northeast Minneapolis, next to Certix. I mean, it's the most modern facility you could possibly find. Dr. Stein has a great chairside manner. He's nice. He's understanding. He obviously knows his stuff, and he'll spend quality time with each patient. We'll make sure they are properly cared for. I want to talk about beyond the obvious dental care is sleep apnea. I was diagnosed with it years ago, and I was stuck with that silly, cumbersome CPAP machine, and I couldn't wait to get rid of it. And I mentioned it to Dr. Stein, and he set me up with his sleep appliance area. And it's the easiest thing in the world. You just pop an upper, lower appliance in each night. My snoring is gone. My wife says I don't snore at all, and I get a restful night's sleep. And if you have sleep apnea, Dr. Stein is the best to see as well to help you in that area. So if you want to contact them in Broadway Dental, give them a call at 612-379-2300. That's 612-379-2300. Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than my good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they have got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to LexusofWayzata.com or LexusofMaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today. Welcome back to Rosen Sports Monday. Mark Rosen along with Jim Souhan. And speaking of winning, it's like the first month of the season was like, are you kidding me? Watching the Minnesota Twins felt like they never played the game of baseball before. All of a sudden, they go on a 13-game winning streak, 33 scoreless inning streak, which would set a franchise record. They lost on Sunday afternoon for the first time. It was still a close game. They played well. What is going on with these guys? All of a sudden, and it's like, who are these guys? Because they have, as we know, with Correa out and Buxton out with the injury in the concussion protocol. Wallner out, yeah. How are they doing it?
Well, they played like idiots for a month. We all know that. That was horrible to watch. You saw, and
it was embarrassing.
And
to watch.
The Twins, like every other team, they spend all spring training on PFP, pitcher fielding practice. I mean, it's just all they do. And then they come out and every pitcher's throwing the ball into left field. It was bizarre. And then they really focused this spring on trying to position themselves to get off to a hot start. They played their starters more. They had starters on more road trips. None of it worked. They played like fools for a month. But here's where the people who thought that was it, that the season was over and these people are stupid and they're all going to get fired, here's where they got it wrong. The pitching is too good and there's too much of it for this team to be bad. They might not be great. Their baseline is set by their pitching, which is if you go all season without getting a hit, you should still be able to go 500. Then how much better than 500 you are is going to be set by how good the lineup is and how healthy you are. Now, this last 13-game winning streak is ridiculous because they were winning with Cody Clemens. They were winning with Kersey, who's gotten like 4 hits all year, had 2 game-winning hits. I mean, the stuff, that's one of the things I love about baseball. It's the least predictable sport in the short window because anybody could get a bloop hit that ends up winning the game. Any pitcher can give you one good inning. But this was the most bizarre winning streak I've ever seen.
And it didn't, listen, I'm not taking anything away from it because pitching is pitching. It didn't hurt to play a team like the Baltimore Orioles 7 times.
You know what? The Yankees play the Orioles too.
They do.
Nobody in New York, that's such a Minnesota thing. Nobody in New York, nobody in the Bronx is going, oh, too bad. We only went 7-0 against the, beating the bad teams is one of the most important things you can do.
100%, as we've seen. And this division, I mean, the Twins throughout that winning streak, Jim, you look up in the standings, they didn't gain any ground.
Detroit's, right? And that's the thing.
This is now the best, maybe the best division in baseball.
It is the best division in baseball. It was the best division in the postseason last year.
Yeah.
3 of the last 4 American League teams were from this division.
Yeah.
And if the Twins had just been competent at the plate, they would have made the playoffs. The division's legitimately good. The question facing all these 3 teams are going to see at Target Field this week: Kansas City, Cleveland, and the Twins. The question is Detroit really this good, or are they one of those, young teams that found themselves and eventually they'll settle down and it's going to be a 4-team race?
With market size comparable to those teams that we're talking about, is the blueprint pretty much the same for those teams you mentioned, the Tigers who have had a resurgence, the Royals we saw get better last year, and Cleveland, of course, and now throw in the Twins.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're very similar.
much-
They're very similar. They believe in building through the farm system. They believe in deep analytics, and they also know they need those things because they're not going to outspend anybody.
Mhm.
So it's really very similar. And I know, everybody just wants to always make it about payroll size. The Twins spent $8 on the lineup they've been running out there. I mean, you can win without signing a superstar. Now, can you win a World Series? Can you be a dominant team? Probably not. But can you be competitive with a team like this? Yes.
Well, Rocco will have a lot of choices. When's Wallner supposed to be back?
I think he's about a week and a half away is my
Okay.
guess.
I mean, he'd be back in that lineup. But imagine, getting Correa, Buxton, and Wallner back in that lineup.
And Keishel's farther away, but
Keishel's like really good looking
he
player.
looks like the best hitter in the organization right now.
Really? Yeah.
I'm talking about scientific hitting, the way you take at bats, ability to hit different pitches hard, different parts of the field. He's as professional a hitter as they have.
Well, and the pitching is, Joe Ryan, Pablo Lopez, Bailey Ober, you go down the list, and then obviously the relief pitching has been lights out, which is what you have to have in this game today from sixth inning on. And that can keep you in any race, for the long haul.
And it's interesting because a bunch of all-star caliber closers have been terrible so far this year. Duran has been fantastic.
Yeah.
He added the sweeper to his repertoire. It really makes it impossible for people to sit on a pitch. He's been great. Jax looks like a guy who had his breakthrough year last year and is having a little bit of a dead arm, but I would expect him to eventually round into shape. Varland back there is great. Colom's been great. You want to see more out of Stewart and Alcala. Sands has been really good. And, they have pitching depth now. They have Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa at AAA, and either of those guys could help in any role you needed them to.
The weather is supposed to be appreciably better by Memorial Day weekend. The Twins will still be at home. Will the fans start returning because they appreciate some good baseball as opposed to whatever gripe they have about the Pohlad organization?
I think, yes. I think if this team continues to play at a high level and they're doing so in June when school lets out and the weather, we actually have sunshine, I do think that people will come out.
They're fun to watch. I have to admit lately, I will be the first to admit the first month of the season was like, I don't know if I can watch this brand of baseball.
Everybody felt the same way.
We
felt
all
the same
did.
way.
Yeah,
it was horrible.
But they're having fun out there. They're doing shots of
Red Bull
out in the bullpen. You can tell there's a camaraderie. There's a lot going on within this dugout that they appreciate what's going on right now.
It's kind of like I said about the Timberwolves. There are really no jerks on that team. It's really a good group. Just nobody cares about that unless you win. That's only a good story. The personalities are only a good story if you actually win. Now that they're winning, you can recognize that it's a pretty good group.
We'll see if the new Pope can help the White Sox, because I'm not sure any other divine intervention.
I think he's gonna have to call in some favors.
How about that shot of him at a White Sox game?
Fantastic.
How many years ago?
It's just
was that the World Series year or something? I think
it was like,
oh my God, that is priceless.
Fantastic.
It really is. Well, maybe when it comes to the United States, the White Sox can figure out a way of getting him to a ball game. That was hilarious. Well, I had a chance to watch your favorite coach, Cheryl Reeve, over the weekend a little bit as well. And the Minnesota Lynx, I'll say this again, Cheryl quite well. I think she's going to be burning a hole in the opponent's eyes until she gets that championship that she so richly deserved last year. This team looks locked in already 2 games in. And Nafisa Collier, talk about all the superstars. It's wonderful. The league needs more. The Caitlin Clarks and Angel, whoever. Nafisa Collier is unbelievable to watch.
Yep. And we're talking. She's kind of. I don't usually like to compare women and men players. It just feels really awkward and it's overdone. But God, she reminds me of Tim Duncan. Never does anything spectacular athletically, just makes every shot, gets every rebound, makes the right play all the time, passes the ball well, plays great defense. She just does everything right over and over and over and over. She's not a spectacular athlete. She just plays the game the right way.
Right.
It's really interesting because last year came out of nowhere. Okay, they were coming off a bad season. They signed 2 players that nobody was excited about off a losing team. There's just no reason to get that excited. And then they should have won the championship. They're better this year. They're going to get Kayla McBride back. She has something going on in her personal life right now. She's their second best player. They have more depth than they had a year ago.
Courtney Williams is off.
She's great. Jess Shepard is exactly the kind of player they love. She rebounds, defends, passes. She can also score. And if Diamond Miller can progress to the point where she's a rotation piece, then they're really deep.
We've already seen Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have a little dust up.
Yep.
Is that good for the league? Is it okay?
I used to have this conversation with Cheryl, with WNBA people. Because, there's this tension when a league wants more attention. They want more attention, but they only want this narrow kind of attention. They just want praise and promotion. Mm-hmm. Well, you want to get people's eyeballs on your league. You want to capture the imagination of the casual fan. You want to raise your ratings, then you want Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark throwing elbows at each other. Is you don't have to explain to somebody why that's interesting. And
it doesn't have to be any bigger than exactly the way you just described it. They threw elbows at each other. If people watched the NBA in the 80s, and this happened.
That play was a nothing play.
It was absolutely nothing.
It was a nothing play. Angel Reese got mad, but even she had to admit after the game, it was just a basketball play. It's not a big deal. But if you're the league, if you're those teams, you're trying to sell tickets, you're trying to get more market share, you want rivalries. You want what do we love about hockey? We love the hatred.
Correct.
There's no hatred in the regular season. The regular season is boring. Mm-hmm. You get the playoffs and these guys start playing each other 6-game series and they start punching each other in the face. That's when it gets interesting. Well, basketball, you don't want actual punches, but you do want that chippiness that just, again, captures the imagination of the casual fan.
It's funny. I had Trent Tucker as my guest last week on the podcast, and he was talking about playing with the Knicks, of course, and they never used to have even flagrant one fault. The refs would never go over to the monitors
to look at teeth up and keep playing.
Just keep going. And I think now it's just the sensitivity with all of it. And you don't want to have brawls out there at the same time. It's a fall. It's a basketball play.
Yeah,
let's move on.
And I really think the league is. You can nitpick any given game, any given official. I think they're doing it about right. They're trying to keep the players safe. They're trying to keep them from brawling. You don't want a bunch of guys out there punching each other in the face in basketball. They'll break their hands. They'll destroy their seasons. I think they're allowing a certain amount of physical play without allowing the dirty stuff in general. I think that's the right way to officiate it.
We wouldn't be complete this podcast without talking about the Vikings. At the Timberwolves game last week, JJ and JJ were sitting next to each other courtside. Justin Jefferson, JJ McCarthy. We'll be seeing a lot of those two guys together, but you could tell the reaction of the fans already, especially. And JJ McCarthy, again, he looks like he's 16 years old. I mean, he's got the facial, but everyone's counting him. The schedule was released. The Vikings are going to be on national TV, I think, 7 times. They open up on a Monday night football game. Think about it. The Vikings against the Chicago Bears. A couple of years ago, thinking, why would anyone want to watch that? And now all of a sudden it's become the first Monday night football game. The Bears have a new coach. They have Caleb Williams, who apparently wanted to play for the Vikings 2 years ago. So we got that storyline going. And then, of course, the debut of J.J. McCarthy.
And Ben Johnson, one of the highest paid first-year coaches in NFL history. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great season. Yeah. The bad thing if you're a Vikings fan is the schedule is very difficult. And there's a stretch in the middle that's as hard a schedule as anybody could concoct. The good thing is this team has the 2 years they've had healthy quarterbacks out of the 3 years under O'Connell, they've exceeded expectations. Nobody saw 13 wins coming. Nobody saw 14 wins coming with Sam Darnold. So I don't know if they can get to that total against this schedule, but I just think O'Connell has earned the benefit of the doubt. And if he thinks McCarthy's his guy, then McCarthy's probably his guy.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see if the Wolves can keep this train rolling for a while. And then, of course, we got the Lynx this summer. But everything points towards the start of training camp. And that's just the way our sports culture works in Minnesota. It's much the way it is in Denver. I mean, other cities as well. But it really is all about the Vikings when it gets down to it, the way people respond to sports in this town.
And in most towns.
Most towns.
St. Louis is a baseball town.
Right.
San Antonio is a basketball town. Green Bay is a football. Most cities where there are the options of NFL versus something else, those are NFL cities. The NFL, I think when you and I were young, baseball still was king.
It was.
And sometime in the 70s or 80s, it flipped where baseball was a distant second. Now baseball, I don't know what they are, fourth. But the NFL is king. And the NFL is king in part because their sport was going to be popular almost no matter what. in part because they learned to market their sport 12 months a year. When I started covering the NFL, they'd shut down for 2-3 months in the middle of the summer. People cared about the draft, but people didn't play up the draft. People didn't do many mock drafts. Now they have learned everything's an event. The schedule's an event. And you know what? We're going to release it on a Wednesday, which means there's going to be a week of leaks. So we're going to get 2 weeks of publicity out of this deal. They have learned how to engage their fans 12 months a year, which was not always the case.
And the money keeps pouring in for no other reason than we're going to sit here and we talk about the schedule. The Vikings are hosting the Detroit Lions on Christmas Day, not only on Christmas Day, on Netflix. Folks, if you don't have Netflix, it's not like, Netflix, and people are going to go, well, what other channel can I watch it on? Netflix. That is it. So, I mean, think of how far the league has come. And obviously they're expanding. We know the Vikings are playing back-to-back games in Europe, and Dublin and London, and they're playing in Munich, playing in Berlin. Not the Vikings, but I mean, this is the way it's going to be. And especially with the TV product.
They want world domination. They want to, I mean, really.
They do.
And at some point, we had the Concorde way back when, super speed jet, and that didn't, I don't know if it wasn't safe enough or the technology wasn't transferable. At some point, somebody's going to figure out a way for air travel to be cut down. And when that happens, and you can go from New York to London in 3 hours instead of 7 or whatever, there will be teams in Europe.
Now, that probably will be at some point. I mean, there's
Mexico City.
Yeah. That makes more sense. Before I let you get out of here, Jim, you were mentioning baseball. One more thing. I want to get your thoughts about the reinstatement possibilities. Pete Rose has passed away. We know Shoeless Joe Jackson passed away a long time. Are they ever going to get in the Hall of Fame now that they are eligible to get kind of back on the ballot?
I think that, it's a great question. I don't
know how to answer it anymore.
I don't know. I just don't know what the average, back when I was a baseball writer and it was just daily baseball writers who were the voters, I had a pretty good finger on the pulse. I don't know if the modern baseball writer will vote for Pete Rose or not. I will just say this. The one sacrosanct rule that always existed in Major League Baseball, and remember, when McGuire and Sosa did steroids, those weren't technically illegal. We all knew they were wrong. I knew you couldn't do it, but there was a scandal, but they weren't the number one rule in baseball was always can't bet on baseball. Can't bet on baseball. It's the only rule you can't break. And for them this is Manfred kind of going, I don't know. I guess we'll just let him in.
Toss him a bone.
I feel we're like we're nicer people. I have no idea. As with so many things with Manfred, I just don't think he's very smart. I don't think he's thinking clearly. If that rule doesn't matter anymore, then none of the rules matter. And you know what? Bring back some of my old ballots from when I used to vote. Let me vote for A-Rod for Hall of Fame, because if that rule doesn't matter, steroids certainly don't matter anymore.
Interesting point. Yeah. And go Minnesota Frost. I mean, come on. All we do is win in this town. Hopefully, when the next time we have a discussion, the Wolves be in the NBA championship against the New York Knicks. That would be
would be a blast. Hey, you know what? I'm going to say this to Minnesota sports fans.
Yeah.
Remember to enjoy this.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to,
correct.
Your stomach is going to be doing somersaults. You're going to be upset when any team loses or something bad happens or a call goes. This is entertainment. This is as good as it gets. Remember to enjoy it.
Try to enjoy it, and don't rip every mistake that everybody makes. It could be worse. You could be the Toronto Maple Leafs fans. So, there's
the Charlotte
silver lining.
Hornets. Could be. I mean, you could be the Milwaukee Bucks about to lose Giannis.
Right.
We have it pretty good right now.
Exactly. Jim, thanks so much as always.
Thanks, Mark.
You've been listening to Rosen Sports Monday here on Talk North Sports. Enjoy your day.